Hey, Clayton, how can anyone be happy in heaven if we know someone who is in hell? Whew, that's a hard one. And I just got to say this up front. This is not a question that I'm going to be able to give you a completely satisfying answer to. This is not one where we can just tidy it up and just be okay with this. This is a really hard one, and we don't have, here's the thing that makes it all okay. And I think there's a reason for that. The reason is in this life, we should never be okay with hell. We should not be okay with the idea of anybody going to hell. And I'm going to give you some reasons why I think one day we will be able to be happy in heaven, even though we know there are people in hell. But I want to say this, here and now, we are supposed to feel the urgency of this because there is still a chance for people to avoid this fate. And we are supposed to feel the weight of this. We're supposed to say, I am not okay with anybody being in hell because I want to extend the invitation to be in heaven, to be in the new creation, to avoid this fate, to avoid being separated from God forever, avoid the penalty of sin and the torment of hell. And we can say to people, you don't have to be there. And we're supposed to feel the urgency of that, to see our loved ones and our neighbors and our coworkers know the hope of Jesus and escape the penalty of hell. We're supposed to not feel okay about this. Which means if I could give you an answer that says, this is why one day you're going to understand, it takes the edge off of that. And I'm not sure we're supposed to get that answer yet. I think one day we will, but I don't think we get the whole answer now, okay? But I do want to explore the question because I think for a lot of people, this is a real hang up to say, there are people that I know, people that I love who have died apart from Jesus. And I'm thinking, how could I possibly ever be happy in heaven knowing this person that I love is suffering in hell? And so let me give you a few thoughts here, okay? The first is I want you to think about what's going to happen when Jesus judges the world, what the experience for us is going to be like, other than the experience of us standing there and having our lives exposed and Jesus saying, let me give the verdict on this, which is going to be a sobering thing, right? Like there's going to be the terror of standing before Jesus and then the wonder for those of us who are in Christ that he would forgive all of that. We're going to be fully known, fully seen, all of it's going to be exposed, and he's going to say, and yeah, even for that I died. Even for that I forgive. Like Jesus is going to say, you're with me, I've covered that, you're in, and we're going to know exactly what we've been saved from. And it's going to be glorious and good. And yet, beyond that experience, you know what's going to happen? As we see Jesus judge all the nations and every individual, here's what's going to happen. For the first time ever in history, we are going to say unequivocally, you got it right. The first time a judge or a king or a ruler has made a call and we are going to say, you really did it. You really settled the matter. You really saw through it all and declared what is right and wrong and made the right decision about what to do with all of it. We will look at that and say, you got it right. No one's going to say, Jesus, you missed something. Or if you just had this perspective, or if you just had a little more information, or if you had just been a little more kind, or you just had, the right perspective, we're going to say, he really dealt with the evil of the world. He saw it for what it is and condemned it, and we applaud that. And he looked at us in our sin and our misery, and he extended mercy as much as he could, and we will say, you did it right. We will look at this, and we will say, for the first time ever, justice has been done, and we will be satisfied. No one's going to raise their hand and say, oh man, I wish we had a better outcome than this. Can we appeal to a higher court? We're not going to do that. We're going to say, you got it right, Jesus. And the reason for that is Jesus is the most just, the most merciful person there ever was. There is no one who cares about justice, right and wrong, good and evil, more than Jesus. And there is no one who has ever loved more deeply or had more compassion, even on his enemies, than Jesus. He's the one who is on the throne, judging people, and yet there are scars in his hands from when he was nailed to a cross to take justice for the sake of other people. This is the Jesus who's going to be doing it. So he's going to get it right. And you are going to say, yes, finally, he was as just and as merciful as I hoped he would be. And so here's the question. When that is done, will Jesus regret his judgments? Like, will he look at those who were in the new creation and those who were condemned to the lake of fire and say, oh, I wish I'd done it differently. I wish I could go back and change my judgments. Like, is he going to regret it? Or is he too going to say, this was right. This was good. This was done as best as possibly could be done. Justice has been satisfied. Mercy has been poured out. Everything is right. Is he going to regret his judgments or not? I don't think he's going to regret them a minute because his judgments are perfect. His judgments are true. And we're going to look at that and say, your judgments are perfect. Your judgments are true. We're going to agree with him, and we are not going to regret the judgments that he made. We're going to say, you did it right. And that includes the condemnation that he doled out. Now, we get a little glimpse of this when we are thinking about really heinous, obvious evil in our world, right? When we think of, the classic ones, the Hitlers and the Stalins and the people who torture children and that sort of thing, we say when they get justice, even partial justice in this life, we say yes, right? You can watch a movie and when the bad guy finally gets what's coming to him, you cheer. There's a reason you cheer at judgment in those things, because when you truly see evil for what it is, you say, yes, that's what it deserves. And I am happy. I'm happy that it finally got dealt with. The challenge for us is that when that happens, there are going to be people that get what's coming to them, get what they deserve, who are people that in this life we loved, people that were close to us, people that we wish were on the other side of things. So what do we do with that? Part of what will be different there and here is that our hearts will be like Jesus's heart. One day, the different bits and pieces of our heart that are messed up and have mixed motivations and unclear perspectives, they're going to be rightly ordered. They're going to be put together the way they were meant to be. And we're going to love things in the right proportion, which means we're going to see the problem of sin for what it is, right? Part of our problem now is that sin does not carry the weight and does not provoke the reaction that it ought to in us. And so when we are standing there on the final day and our eyes are open and we see what sin really has done to the world, where we see the offense that our sin was to other people made in the image of God, and I see your value and I see the value of each person and I see the things that I did to denigrate you and hurt you and do those things, and I see those things for what they are, I'm going to realize just how much my sin needs to be condemned. And I'm going to look at the sin of other people and I'm going to say, man, this is awful. This is worse than I thought. I won't be able to say, it's just no big deal. Oh, it's just, in context, it made sense, or they were having a hard day, or, really, what's the big deal? Let's overlook it, because I'm going to see the value of people. I'm going to see the value of the world that was damaged by sin. I'm going to see the value of God himself. God, you have to understand, we miss out on how infinitely worthy God is and how deeply offensive and wrong and just vile sin is, because when we're standing there in the face of all of God's glory and we see him before us and we see how perfect he is and how he offered himself for us, and yet when we reject him and scorn him and insult him and spit in his face and we do these things, how awful that is, just how weighty at a cosmic scale it is for people made in God's image to reject the God of glory and infinite worth. We're going to say that deserves to be punished. We're going to see just how wrong sin is, and we're going to say something needs to be done about that. And I think when we see that, we're going to look at people who committed sin, and when Jesus says this has to be punished, we're going to say, you're right, even if those were people that we knew and loved. Here's the best analogy I've got, and I know this is not satisfying, but this is what I got. Let's say someone that you loved, you lived in 1930s Germany, and someone you loved, a brother, became a Nazi. They said, I'm joining up with the Nazis, and I'm signing up, and I'm going to be one of the ones who's there in the concentration camp. I want to exterminate these people, and I'm going to operate the gas chambers. And I'm going to make sure that these people are wiped from the earth. And your brother, who you grew up with and loved and spent time with and cared deeply about, at the end of the war is condemned for his crimes. He's condemned for his crimes as a Nazi and operating the gas chambers. Now, you look at that, and of course your heart breaks because you love this person, and yet there's something that happens when you realize just how heinous someone has gotten into something just so bad that you say, when I realize you were jumping into that, I say it is right for you to be condemned. In fact, if you weren't condemned, I would have a problem with that. Even though you're my brother, right? If you find out that someone you love is harming children, you might say that, and I've had this experience, right? Where I say, this is someone that I care about, and yet I am thankful they're behind bars. And in many ways, I say that needed to happen, and I cheer it on in many ways, even though they were someone I know and love. And so this is an analogy, right? There's still some mixed feelings in there, but I think there's something that happens when you start to realize, even though I love this person, they have gone down a road that truly is so bad. The problem is we don't see sin as so bad that we can never imagine agreeing like that. And so I think that's the road of thinking you need to go down to try to understand how you can be happy in heaven, even though you know people in hell. It's because at some point, and I know this sounds strange, I know this is hard to believe, and I don't think you have to swallow it right now. But at some point, you will say, it is good news that Jesus sent people to hell, that Jesus condemned evil forever, and it is getting the punishment that it deserves. That is actually a good thing that you will rejoice in. Now, that's really hard. I realize that does not make a whole lot of sense right here and right now. And again, that's because right here and right now, there's a chance for people to escape that fate. And we want to offer mercy to as many people as possible. We want to get the word out so that as few people are there. Because the only alternative to having your sin justly punished and cheered by the righteous that you were punished is by having your sin forgiven and cheered by the righteous, that Jesus was merciful and forgiving your sin even though you didn't deserve it, because he paid the penalty. He suffered the suffering so that you didn't have to. And so those are the only two options. Sin must be dealt with, and it's either on the cross or it's dealt with in hell. And both of those things are good ways for it to be dealt with. Okay. Heavy question. Thanks for listening. If you've got your own questions, email questions@BibleSavvy.com. Like and subscribe to catch our regular episodes every Monday on the Bible Savvy Podcast.